Right, so let's talk about climate action, right? Our guest this morning is a man who, we were talking about being cold in Hargeisa. He's from Eldoret. If you just look at how he's dressed, you'll know he's from Eldoret.
And for those who don't know, Timborough is not very far from Eldoret.
And Nairobi is cold.
And Nairobi is cold as well. Peter Kibet Arap Biwott is the managing director of the Eldoret Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Eldowas. Peter, karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Asante sana.
It's good to have you on the show here.
I'm also happy. I've been following, now I'm inside. Nikon Dad.
You've been there on the peripheries, now here you are.
Yes.
That hot seat is right there.
Oh, yes.
Where you are seated.
Thank you very much.
Is it very cold in Eldoret?
Not really.
Not
actually,
yet, yeah?
It's quite hot at the moment. We are anticipating the rains. So normally it's humid and quite hot. Yeah.
When should it start raining?
I think it should have started actually mid-March,
Yeah.
around 15th. But now it's a bit delayed. But there are some sporadic rainfalls around town. And we hope that by end of the month, it should start raining.
Peter,
Yeah.
there's something that has puzzled me. I've never really understood these long, short, medium-term rain periods. I've never, in all the years I've lived, I've never really understood them. But I'm even more confused now. Is there any regularity or consistency with this pattern? So you can say authoritatively, the long rains are with us. The short rains are with us. Can we say it? Or
It's no longer, actually, when we were young, it was very consistent. So you would know that by end of February, beginning of March, there's going to be a lot of rains.
Yes.
And it used to start, in Eldoret, it used to start from eastern side, Jarangani Hills. But these days, you cannot tell. You can't even know where it's coming
You don't
from.
know.
So it just comes.
The rain just comes.
And it comes at night.
I'm glad.
It used to be immediately after lunch. Just around lunch, before lunch.
Yeah.
A
Look
lot
at
of rain.
Jarangani.
Jarangani, and then
Jarangani.
it comes
The rain.
back.
No, but he's right. It's like if you are traveling to my neck of the wood, you get to Kericho, you knew at a certain time in the afternoon, it was always raining.
raining, yes.
There was no question. It
Yes.
was raining.
Raining, yes.
Now,
You can't tell.
yes, the why is what I'm interested in. Yes.
I think what has happened over the years, if you look at even those days we were young, like myself, I was young in the 90s, 1980s, 85, henceforth, there was a lot of forest cover in our hometown in Eldoret. There was a lot of forest cover actually in Kenya, and I think that was the most contributing factor to consistent patterns of rain in our country. So partly that is the cause, because if you go now to Cherangani Hills, it's almost done. If you go to Eldoret, you find a lot of blue gum trees, which are commercial.
Right.
The indigenous trees are actually
being cut down.
Yeah, being cut down. Even my father's home or my father's land, it used to be really forested. These days, everywhere is cultivated. But even the maize is not
Because
as productive as it was.
his sons cut the trees.
No, I think the population in the compound increased, and the economic need actually expanded, and the big land that time became small, because everybody had to do some economic activities here and there. So this is really a threat.
So it's a combination of very many things,
Yes.
including population growth,
Yes.
poor management of the forest cover and
Yes.
the trees that we had,
Yeah.
and all those. Now, as MD of the Eldoret Water and Sanitation Company, you are at that point where when there are no trees, there's no rainfall, there's no water,
There's no groundwater. Yes.
there's no groundwater,
Yes.
and people are increasing,
Yes.
and the demand for water keeps increasing.
Exactly.
But first, introduce us to Eldoret Water
So thank you very much. Eldoret Water and Sanitation Company is a water service provider in Kenya. We have about 91 water service providers. So in every town, you'll find Trans Nzoia Water Service, Water and Sanitation Company, Nairobi Water and Sanitation Company, Mombasa,
Yeah.
So we are a water service provider regulated by Water Service Regulatory Board from Nairobi here. And we are owned by the county. Like, for example, Eldoret Water and Sanitation Company, the principal shareholder of our company was Ngishu County Government, 99% shareholding. So that speaks to legal and policy changes since the coming in of the new constitution. So water is a concurrent function. So it's played by the national government as well as the county governments. So for us, we do two functions. One, we supply water, and then also we work on our sanitation by ensuring that sewer line coverage in our hometown is adequate, and sanitation therefore goes high. So that's basically us. And if you look at what we implement, we are aligned to what is envisioned in the Vision 2030 on universal coverage when it comes to water and sanitation, like 100%. So if you look at the Vision 2030,
Yes.
we have said by 2030, all Kenyans will be access to clean water. It's called potable water. Then in terms of sanitation, 80%, coverage.
Yeah.
Now, if in our Katiba, water and sanitation is a human right. Actually, it's drawn, I think our Katiba drew that on economic, social, and cultural rights, where it says water and sanitation is a human right. So basically, that is what we implement. And we ensure that people who live in urban areas have access to adequate water and sanitation. Yeah.
What geographical area do you cover? Is it just Eldoret town, or does it?
It's the former Eldoret municipality. So
former
we
Eldoret
have a
municipality.
population of about 500,000 Kenyans
And
within
how
the former
many?
Eldoret municipality.
How many of them have access to piped potable water?
It's 424,000, but we have water scarcity. So despite the fact that the line is going to 424,000, we have inadequate, because in Eldoret we require 60 million liters of water per day because of the population. Eldoret is like a transit town as well.
Yeah.
Many Kenyans going to Western Kenya, East Africa, Uganda, make a stop at Eldoret town. So the need is about 60 million liters of water, but currently we produce 41.3 million liters of water. So water goes to those pipelines on a rationalized basis, so that we can be able to cover everyone. But out of the 41.3% million liters, we lose about 42%. It's called non-revenue water.
Okay.
Since I came, I think that's come to about at 6.
What does that mean, non-revenue water?
Non-revenue water is water that we process, but we cannot account in terms of billing.
I still don't understand.
It is, there's the water we process, and then we put it in the pipeline.
Yes.
Now,
And
as
then
it
you go-
goes, what we get at the end is less by 42%.
So where does it go? Where does our water go?
What that means is because our pipelines are old. For example, the first pipeline in Eldoret was laid in 1928. So sometimes we get bursts, leakages, but that's called physical losses. Then there's another one which is called commercial loss. Commercial losses are a result of illegal connection and water theft. So that is how we lose our water.
I can understand the
Okay.
physical. This commercial one,
So when we see these water bowsers running about, and the question is, where do these fellows get this water from in the case where there's water scarcity? Could this be directly related to that?
No, it's not, because you see, the water bowsers are actually coming in to intervene on areas where the water has not reached.
But where are they getting their water from?
Like, for example, for us, in the headquarters of Eldoret town, we have a big tank. So a lot of our water in the water bowsers are fetched from that tank, which is
So you
consistently,
sell to
consistently
them.
full.
So you sell to the bowsers.
No, it's our bowsers. Okay, we sell also. There is our bowsers, which
And then
we
there's commercial
used to
bowsers.
distribute, but also Kenyans come, those who don't have water, even from outside Eldoret municipality, they come with water bowsers, and we sell at the current tariff of Eldoret, which is 68 shillings per meter cubed of water.
Okay. What is the source of the water? So we're looking at a need in Eldoret, for example, of
Yes.
60 million litres
Yes.
daily.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
What is the source of this 41 points, however much
So
that
we
you're
have-
getting currently?
Yes, we have various catchment areas or watersheds. Like, for example, Cherangane is the source of water to our Moiben Dam. It's called Chebara in Elgeyo Marakwet. It is in Marakwet West constituency. And then we have another one at Kaptagat, which is called Elagarine. And we have Elagarine Dam. And then we have the Two Rivers Dam, which was built in 1966. So these are the dams which feeds. We also have Kipkaren Dam. As you fly into Eldoret, if you are landing from the east, on the left you will see Kipkaren Dam. So that's another one. So these are the sources. So basically, our water is coming from Kaptagat catchment area or watershed, and then Cherangani watershed. That is the source.
Okay.
Those are the two main sources, actually. So if you go to Kaptagat, there's about 3,000 acres watershed, which is feeding into Eldoret. And if you go to Moiben, you will also see Cherangani Hills. But there's a lot of human activity, and that's the threat why we are actually been having the Climate Action Marathon for the last 4 years,
Right.
is to try to address what is happening at the water sources.
Okay. So then, what is happening at the water sources? Is there a direct relation between that and then this lack of 19 million liters of water per day?
Partly. Partly because you see what has happened, a lot of human activity is happening because of economic, economic needs. The issue of forest has become one of the economic sources for, the development of the country. So you find that there are entrepreneurs who are dealing on timber-related businesses. So, and that, as a result of this, there is also the issue of, let's say, we can say poverty, and also lack of maybe clean energy, because the local people use firewood. I'm sure your mom, if they live in rural areas, they would be fetching firewood. And that is one area that really has led to the degradation of the forests. So you find that there is a lot of logging happening there. And then also the growth of Eldoret, commercial logging. So you find that if you go to Kenya Forest Service Station in Marakwet West, you find a lot of confiscated posts which had been felled by some people and they wanted to sell maybe in Eldoret illegally.
You have in existence 3 dams.
Yes.
Okay, there's a 4th one.
There's another one, Kibet, and there's also Keses Dam.
Yes.
5.
Now, even as we talk about these major projects, these are 130 billion shilling project and above. What other means or ways does the county encourage its citizens to harvest water? Because it rains.
Yes, I think that's another area which I think that's, yes.
And if I were to go back to the annals of the Local Authorities Act and the laws of local authority, one of the requirements in the building code was you could not put up a structure without having
Water harvesting
capacity or facility. You could not. I am not certain whether that requirement was removed, but since you are the water person and you look at all ways and means of ensuring that there's sufficient water from whichever source, tell us about water harvesting.
Actually, it is another area which we are going to talk about in the Climate Action Conference, because you realize that as we speak, as I've said, we don't have sufficient water in town. So the other way of supplementing is to ensure that we do harvest. And yes, indeed, there is that provision when you are constructing within the Eldoret municipality. So you have to make sure that your house has enough water harvesting, technologies. And you find that a lot of our guys who are doing construction actually have underground tanks. So it is an alternative because the other water is not sufficient. But of course, there are initiatives which are currently being done to ensure that we generate sufficient water within Eldoret.
You know what I'm going to ask you is, what is the capacity of the rainfall that Eldoret receives in a year? Because you have the measure for it. The reason why, you don't have to give me an accurate, what I'm asking is, if you need 60 million liters of water in Eldoret
per day.
Okay? When it rains to the point where there's a deluge. Water just sort of like flows and goes around. So I'm asking, how much of this water actually exists when it rains? So it gives you an idea of what the harvesting of water could do towards alleviating this particular problem.
Unfortunately, that area has not been quite developed in the country. I think there is even a government agency which has been created to sensitize on those areas. It's an area that I think there's a bigger opportunity, and in the upcoming conference, I think we'll be discussing, because really, we need to tap into this rainwater in preparation for the prolonged drought season. Like this year, the drought has really gone far. And I think that's another area that currently as Eldoret Water we are promoting. And that's just one part. The other part is we are currently improving on Two Rivers Dam. Actually, there is going to be a construction of Two Rivers Dam again, because what has happened, because of the economic activities in the watershed, a lot of soil actually has been carried to the dam, silting of the dam. So you realize as we speak today, Two Rivers Dam is dry. There's no water. Absolutely no water. So,
and this should be a permanent river.
It's a permanent river. Yes, it's Oceanic River actually. So it's a permanent river. But But because of the demand, the water just comes and
goes.
just goes. So it can no longer hold any water at the moment. But that's what I'm saying there's already a feasibility study done for the construction of or expansion of Two Rivers Dam. And as we speak, the Kibet Dam is actually being concluded. So all these are some of the key initiatives to ensure that there's enough availability of water in Eldoret town. There is also another aspect which has been forgotten for a very long time, and that is why His Excellency, our Governor, Jackson Mandago, initiated the Climate Action Marathon, which is now going to the 4th edition, and I will be inviting you to run with us on 10th April. The climate action now is to address the issue of afforestation, to bring back our forests. Because if you look at Kenya, we focus a lot more in infrastructure development in terms of building dams, but we are not concerned
with the source
about the source as much. And I think the Climate Action Marathon and the Climate Action Conference is a call from Eldoret. We don't have to receive calls all the time from Nairobi. It's a call from Eldoret to Kenya, right, to make a shift towards the conservation of watersheds and water catchment areas.
Peter, I mean, I think that, the relation between afforestation and then, lack of a vital resource such as water.
Yes.
I mean, we can't undermine the importance of it.
Yes.
Very clear. So where are the conversations in terms of, because one of the things that you mentioned, look, people are using trees as a fuel source.
Yes.
Right? And you're not going to ask them to stop, because what are they going to do?
Yes.
And it's a major issue.
Actually,
right?
Yeah.
So then how, and I really believe that that's where the conversation ought to be. Even as these trees are being cut down, we're talking about a dam that's empty,
Yes,
for
yes.
crying out
Yeah,
loud,
yeah.
A permanent river that has no water.
Yes.
Right? So isn't that where the conversation ought to be? That, look, even as we are cutting down this vital source, are we replenishing the earth? Questions like, how high is the water table in that area?
Yes.
Are people digging boreholes? Last week, we heard a story, we looked at a story of here in Nairobi, in East Leigh, where the water table is almost diminished because people are digging boreholes. Everybody's digging a borehole. So where are the conversations in terms of that? To say, replenishing the environment in order to get this water flowing.
In fact, this is the conversation that we are starting. By the way, as we move forward, first of all, even as we discuss about conservation, we need to look at what are Kenya commitments. For example, under Sustainable Development Goals, the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations, while you're talking about access to water and sanitation, you're talking about afforestation. First of all, even as we move, we have to change the conversation also to be about women, about children, and those people who are vulnerable in the society. Because if you look at the SDGs, the issue of water scarcity, the issue of lack of sanitation affects women, girls, children, and people, elderly people, and vulnerable people in the community when it comes to, that inadequacy. So this question is very important. And what we are doing as part of our integrated approach that we are going to be initiating, you look at this initiative in 3 contexts. It must be integrated, multi-sectoral, and sustainable. Now, this question is very important because what we are now going to do, because people need fuel or firewood. They don't have solar.
Yeah.
They don't have biogas. Now, what we are going to do in our integrated development plan for the next 10 years, which we will be initiating, and we want to thank development partners, because we've received a lot of funding since we started the call. I will talk about it later. We just need to see how can we be able to have, for example, improved agriculture, whereby we practice maybe zero grazing, and then we support those communities in terms of developing biogas, in terms of adopting solar, and even wind energy. If you go to the cliff at the end of Kaptakat Forest, where the catchment area for Eldoret is coming, there's a lot of wind. There's actually the Kerio Valley. Because if you go to that cliff, you find that from there, water flows to Kerio Valley, while the rest flows to Eldoret town. There's a lot of wind coming. And I've never seen even a single
wind turbine.
Wind turbine, yes. So these are some of the conversations that if we invest in terms of renewable energy in that area, we should be able to assist even in our conservation initiatives, because you can plant a tree, but if there are no alternative sources of energy, wananchi will continue using the forest for their own survival.
Right.
Is that in your mandate as a water services company to promote all these things, or does it now start cross-cutting into the board that you work under?
Yeah.
And how well are you working with? Which board are you under?
Currently, we are under the North Rift Water Works Development Agency.
Yes.
We are also under the county, and also we are under WASREB in terms of regulations. Yeah.
So now the North Rift are the
And
ones who are
under
in
the
charge
Ministry
of,
of Water and Sanitation. Yes.
North Rift are in charge of like looking at water sources in all that area,
Development of infrastructure.
and developing the infrastructure to
Yeah.
bring water to the companies.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they also have a big role to play in
Definitely,
knowing where the
definitely,
water is coming from.
Definitely, yes.
Are they involved in these conversations?
Yes, in fact, if you had me when I was talking about the integrated development plan for conservation of watersheds in the North Rift, because we are looking at it in that context, it means we have to seek partnerships. I said it must be integrated, multi-sectoral, and it must be sustainable, which means this approach we are taking is because we are supplying water in Eldoret town, we feel it is part of our responsibility to ensure that we push the agenda of environmental conservation. And that is why, as I speak to you, we've been able to write to various development partners, ministries, including our mother Ministry of Water, Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Soon we are going to be launching with collaboration, because we have signed an agreement with the Nature Conservancy, and they are going to be giving us about 260 million Kenya shillings under Eldoret 10 water fund for the restoration of catchment areas in that area. So we are seeing that when it comes to issues, for example, of dairy improvement or agriculture improvement, we have to talk to the county government of Elgeyo Marakwet.
Yeah.
Our county government is at the forefront, is the leader in terms of now pushing this agenda. The Nandi County, because Eldowas mandate goes far up to the Nandi County, a place called Olesos and Mosoriat. So even the fourth estate, you will realize that in Eldoret town, since the last 3-4 months, we've really engaged the fourth estate. We even have a media, a forum on water and sanitation in that region, which we initiated, because we feel that as we do our initiatives, the whole world needs to know, because it's part of contribution to the realization of Kenya's commitment under the Sustainable Development Goals, our Vision 2030, the Agenda 2063 of the African Union. So by doing so, we reach out to many, and they will come in terms of giving us technical, in terms of giving us financial, as well as human resource support. Yeah.
Take a break at this point. It's 29 minutes to 8, Kenya's biggest conversation. With us in the studio is Peter Kibet, Arap Biwott. He's the managing director of the Eldoret Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Eldowas. We are talking about climate action, talking about the sources of the water that Eldowas needs to provide to the people. 500,000 residents that should be receiving water. 424,000 have access to pipes, but not all of them have access to water on a daily basis. And this is a big issue, and that's why Peter is here with us, talking about the Climate Action and Exposition Conference that will be taking place on the 8th of April in Eldoret town. Why is it important? That's what we're talking about it. Keep it here for more conversations coming up shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room.
Angela is a resident of Eldoret and as one of your consumers. We should ask you why residents around Marriott area are not receiving the piped water, yet they get monthly bills.
You said that pipes were put up in 2010, but no water has ever come through. Everyone in that area has dug boreholes.
Yeah, actually, we are working to make sure that all the pipelines are actually tracked, and we check on the integrity of the same pipelines. What I know is that since that time, there's been a lot of constructions happening, like improvements of roads, like fiber optics. There's been opening of new roads, especially around that area. There are a lot of new roads which were actually opened. I'm not sure about it. I'm going to check it. I know I've been receiving a lot of calls from Annex. Annex, Marriott is towards Kapsabet. Kapsabet, it's the Eldoret Kapsabet route. And we'll be checking. One finding which I've actually found since I came, because I'm not a managing director who sits in the office. So I have my own overall, and I always go to the ground to see what's happening there. And I have found out that in areas including Simat, even Mailine, due to road constructions and also due to lack of effectiveness by the teams that time, Now we are trying to shape the effectiveness of the teams at the moment by ensuring even that, managing by moving around. We've realized that a lot of pipelines were cut off by contractors. In fact, currently we are pushing that a legislation is put in place on, we have Water Act 2016, but at the county level we need a Water Act so that some of these damages, in fact yesterday I was at the Water Service Regulatory Board, in our tariff there's need to be a provision on penalties for those guys who are carrying out construction, fiber optics, because I've realized since I came, we've been able to deal with over 50 cases of fiber optic guys or road construction who
Bursting pipes.
they actually cut off the pipes without even caring, and water runs down for hours.
So what should be the procedure, by the way, now that you've just gone into that? If somebody's working on an area that has pipes passing, should they first alert the company that we're
Yes,
going to
in
be
fact,
working?
we wrote to under the Ministry of Fiscal Planning at the county. There's a committee which normally approves works at the county. So Eldowas was not part of it, so we've requested that we need to be part of it as part of the county institution, so that now, before anybody starts the construction, they seek a no objection or they seek approval from our office, so that now we can be able to show them where our pipeline is passing. What we have done as Eldoret Water, all our pipelines are under GPS.
Okay.
So we should be able to draw a map and tell them this is where our pipelines pass. And when they are on the ground and we've partnered together, we should be able to send an engineer to work with them very closely. So you realize some of these cases like that one, the pipeline could have already been disconnected and nobody, knew about it or nobody took any action against it. Okay. So this is something that we are actually addressing. If they're receiving bills, I think it is only the standing charges, but the standing charges, we are actually getting rid of them so that we just focus on water consumed by the clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, back to the issue of water sources and water catchment. Some of these areas where the water is coming from, are they under your jurisdiction?
Yes.
For example, if we talk about Cherangani and Kaptagat.
Yes, partly they are under our jurisdiction, but as you said, we need to engage in a multi-stakeholder framework, whereby we have to really work very closely with Kenya Forest Service, the Water Towers Authority. We also have to work with the communities, because you realize that if you go to that region, every member of the community have actually fenced off, including the springs. Because if you go to Cherangani Hills, for example, Moiben, a place called Kabieko in Elgeyo Marakwet County, you realize that the massive Nzoia River, or the massive, because it starts as Moiben River, when it crosses to Moisbridge, as it goes to Western, it's called Nzoia River. It's very massive. The sources actually are small springs around Kabiego area. And you realize that...
in people's farms?
Yes, in people's farms. So you realize that people have actually fenced them off. Trees around that area have actually been cut off. You see an introduction of commercial trees like blue gum, which actually depletes the water. So normally, our catchment areas will be secure if we use indigenous trees, because those are the ones which safeguards
But let me ask,
the watershed, yes.
how come, is it not possible to bring these water sources under government?
It is under the Katiba. Actually, it is under the government. I think it is an issue of proper management. You remember there are areas which are called riparian areas.
Yes.
From a source of water, people should stay away 30 meters. It's just about implementation of laws. I think Kenya, we have the best laws. It's about implementation of laws, and also it's about the letter and spirit of the Katiba. Because if it is about public participation, if these citizens are educated, if they are sensitized, if their economic power is enhanced, if their dairy is improved, they should be able to care. Because
care for the
one of the feedbacks I get when I go to these communities, they feel like they have been left out. Everywhere, go to anywhere in Kenya catchment areas, go to Mau, go to Abadeas. You'll find that citizens around that area will be saying, we are the source of water, for example, we have no water. We are the source of water, we have no support. So, or we are not being engaged.
There's no incentive to take care of this water source.
So I think we just need to sharpen our implementation. I've been working in the public service for now, maybe my 16 year of working. maybe 10 years to 11 years has been in public service. The rest have been in the private sector. And one of the opportunities I've seen in government is being able to bring the private sector mentality, efficiency and effectiveness and timeliness in terms of the execution of what we have planned, and passion as well. And then also looking at Kenya as a patriotic citizen, saying that we need to ensure that we use the least money to create the highest impact, because the resource is scarce. So sometimes, as a development economist, we are told that the country doesn't have enough, let's say, funding. But at the end of every financial year, there are funds remaining not spent. So I think there need to be some kind of injection of a bit of
Efficiency.
and effectiveness, so that we can be able to address, and then also a balance between politics and development.
But Peter, there's a word that you mentioned during the break, sustainability.
Yes.
We seem to have this big push for what we're calling development, new swanky projects, and they all seem to cost billions of shillings. And yet, we've had projects that were addressing the same issues, cost effective, cost efficient, and they existed. They did not need to be invented. They just needed to be sustained improved upon. And like the water pans.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
The issue of harvesting water that we spoke of.
Yes.
Now, if these simple things that we can do are not enforced, even when we have these huge projects that we're speaking of, and we build even 3 or 4 more dams, and we're able to do you see us actually making any progress? Because if the mindset is the same, it doesn't matter how many dams in my mind we build.
Yep.
If we can't take the steps to ensure that at the level where we ourselves can responsibly contribute to this progress we're talking about, and we're waiting for someone else to create a big project in order to help solve the situation, 10 dams later will be exactly where we are.
I agree with you. We need to be smart in the manner in which we carry out our implementation. Currently, I talk about, implementing our projects in a smart manner, and then ensuring an A to Z of these projects. Because I think that even the conversation has changed. In the next year or two, Kenya should not be focusing on heavy infrastructural investments. What we need to focus on currently is to ensure that we create the sufficient economic push to be able to utilize those infrastructures which are available. Like, for example, I think in the water sector, that conversation is changing. Yes, we are building dams. But even with the small dams and the water pans you're talking about, I think if we make a mega investment and implement the government policy on 2 billion trees, in this planning period up to, I think, this year, or in the next 5 years, if we are able to ensure that we push our forest cover to 10%, because in East Africa, if you look at the forest covers, Kenya is the lowest. I think if you go to Uganda, if you go to Tanzania and the rest of the East African countries, they are above 25% in terms of forest cover. And that's why if you go to Uganda, you still find, a lot of, you find a lot of Kenyan manufacturers actually have shifted to Uganda when it comes to, planting of, inputs to their manufacturing plants. So I think as we speak today, the next push, the next allocation should be to focus on making sure our catchment areas are all restored, making sure that Kenya forest cover not only reaches 10%, I think we need to go to 20%. If we go to that percent, water supply will not matter whether you have a big dam or a small dam, because it's going to be sustainable, it's going to be there. So I think there is need to be a paradigm shift.
In the way we think.
In the way we think and in the way we actually execute our programs and projects.
You talked about various partnerships that you're forming with different organizations, development partners, and state agencies. Tell us about them and what they are about.
You see, you cannot. One thing as part of addressing the inadequacy in terms of resources, you see, if you look at the country, we have enough. Yes, well, we have enough human capital. We have issues of finances. As I said, when you're implementing projects, there is need to be partners. Like us as Eldoret Water, we generate our own income. Our own income is not enough, to move our water connection and sewerage connection to the next level. So we will need support from other development partners, even in the conservation. I think in our tariff, conservation is been, the value for conservation in our tariff is about 2 shillings per cubic meter. So that might not be adequate. In fact, we'll be negotiating to push it to maybe 5 shillings per cubic meter of water supplied, so that the citizen can actually be able to contribute to the future of their town. Because I feel if we do not do something right now, the future of our town will not be bright in terms of development. So you realize, even for example, in the Eldoret Return Water Fund that we have established, it is a public-private kind of partnership fund, whereby we have our input as Eldoret Water. The Nature Conservancy has given us 260 million Kenya shillings. Now we are reaching out to manufacturers and business community in Eldoret and beyond. Like, for example, we have companies in Eldoret who are producing food products and beverages. They use water as a raw material. So it is in their interest to ensure that they contribute to this fund, either by contributing seedlings or by contributing human capital to go and plant. Like now we will be planting trees on 9th and they will be part of it. There are those who do timber-related products. Others are textile. And they use water in volumes. If you go to every of these companies, warehouses, you find huge water tanks.
Yeah.
Because water is a very important input in the manufacturing process. So, and that's why we are appealing to even locals in that area, even to plant trees within their compounds. So it's an all of us campaign, an all of us, initiative, where we even want the fourth estate to be part of it, so that we can create. And I like what you asked.
Muga.
Muga. I like what I like what Muga asked. Sustainability, because after making rounds around Eldoret water catchment areas, a lot of the citizens told me that you guys, you come and plant trees as a camera issue. You want to be seen that you are planting, even demonstrate, but you're not caring about the next day. And what I found out that was lacking is we are lacking partnership with the community, being able to have them to own, and even looking at this issue of conservation as an economic activity. And what we have done as Eldoret Water, we've been able to adopt some tree nurseries in Chebara. We have done others in Kaptagat up to Eldoret, where we have told our youth, our women. You find that most of the tree nurseries belong to women groups or youth groups. So we have actually told them that we will give them the expertise to ensure that those tree nurseries are nurtured, and then we will buy the trees from them, and then we will have them also to plant and to take care of it as a condition for us buying in the next year.
Right.
So in so doing, we will be achieving, economic empowerment. We will also be achieving responsibility and ownership.
Sure.
And I think this is the partnership that we are actually trying to drive, and do it in a very different way. Yeah.
Who's responsible then for advocacy and education in the community? Because here you said obviously that we support Eldoret Water will support people to give you the expertise and such. But then in terms of the importance of knowing, for example, that if you're cutting a tree down, for example, for your fuel resource, that there is the following action of replacing that tree until it becomes habitual in the minds of people that if we're going to take, we must put back. It will probably shorten the process of then having these sustainable resources.
Exactly.
But then who's responsible for making sure that it is ingrained in the minds of all of us that, one of the only ways in which we're going to have, like the question Angela has asked, water running in our taps on a regular basis, forest cover beyond, how many percent that we need it, is by replenishing what we've taken from nature. How do we get that as a part of thinking?
Actually, thank you very much for that question, and thank you for talking about the running taps. Later on, I'll talk to you about Linda Maji Mitaani and Linda Maji Viwandani, one of our initiatives. Actually, what we are doing, maybe I can say, what we are doing is part of Linda Maji, an initiative we call Linda Maji Mitaani and Linda Maji Viwandani. You are spot on. We need to have opinion leaders or people who will be advocating and urging influencers, what we call influencers, who will be influencing the community and Kenyans towards that direction, to think that we all need to be responsible for our future, because we might fell down trees today, but we're hurting the future of our children and their children. So you see, and that's why if you look at this conference, it's quite unique. Actually, we've we've been able to carry out our campaigns. I know we've partnered with, for example, institutions like Kenya Association of Manufacturers, the Chamber of Commerce, faith-based organizations, and churches. In fact, I've held a lot of conversations with church leaders because churches are quite influential as well when it comes to issues of conservation.
Indeed.
And we've been able to reach out to all faiths. And in fact, during the conference, we've invited all of them. And we've said we are going to use all means to ensure that even the faith-based organizations, pastors, imams, are the ones who speak the same language in churches. When they visit, radio stations, they also speak about the same. Politicians, we are also trying to change the mentality of politicians. And when I get a chance to speak in the media like today, I always tell our citizen, when a politician now comes to campaign, can you ask them to mention something about climate change? Are they aware? Do they understand? Let it be a topic in terms of even vetting and electing our future leaders. And that's what we're saying. The future leaders of today and tomorrow are leaders who are concerned about climate change. They are leaders who have initiatives around climate action. Because you realize also they are very important and they are very influential. In fact, when it comes to forest conservation, you find that a lot of the guys who de-incentivize citizens or urge citizens to continue doing what they are doing
to
in the
encroach
forest
the
are
forests
politicians.
and all.
They are politicians for votes.
Live here.
Live here, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Even those who sometimes tell, citizens not to pay water, that it is COVID time,
Yep.
are actually politicians. And in the end, they hurt institutions. So this is a conversation which I also think, and we're going to have a media conference soon in Eldoret, so that we can also pass data and information to our journalists, so that they can write, they can talk about, and they can create platforms for this kind of discussions. We don't have to wait for conferences in Arap. I believe we can start from our rural Kenya.
Do you have a program that reaches out to school children?
That is another one. In fact, we've been able to visit Moigals, SOS Children's Home in Eldoret, and we went to Moigals and we found out that they have a teens green belt movement where they are setting up tree nurseries. In fact, in our roadshow we did of Linda Maji in Eldoret, we actually invited all of them, and we want them to be part of this Linda Maji Mtani, because I was saying, if we educate our children on conserving and taking care of water, they should be able to put pressure to their parents, because we realize some of these parents are the ones who have done illegal connections in Eldoret.
Yeah.
And they're using our water free.
Yeah.
That's why we are saying Linda Maji Mtani, and we have actually found a lot of them. We've been able to find people who have done illegal connections, pastors, teachers, headmasters, people in government.
Have you asked why they do this?
I think it's just convenience. People don't like,
because they don't
when
have
you
an
get a free thing,
But Peter, do you think
most of them tell me they don't know.
If there was water
They were
running
not.
in my tap.
They say they are not conscious.
Yes,
But if there was
thank
water running in my tap, Peter, why would I go and seek an illegal connection?
No, but let me tell you, in some areas of Eldoret, near the source, like a place called Kipkorgot and Chepkanga, people get water daily. But that's
They
where
still
the most theft is happening.
So how does this theft happen?
You see what happens? In Eldoret, we have about 15,000 zero bills. Some of those zero bills, we have technology we have actually acquired as Eldowas, where we can detect how water is flowing. And you find that there's a T-junction before the meter.
So before that T junction,
Circumvention takes
yes.
place.
Yeah. So they put a T-junction, and then they put a pipeline to behind their houses. And before the meter, there is a valve. So they close it, and then they allow the water to go. Near the man, they open it. You come and see it is one unit, yet it is a huge building, or it is even someone who is doing irrigation.
But can this happen if it isn't with the connivance of people who work in the water ministry?
That's what I'm saying. This issue,
And even this company.
Actually, if
Yes.
you look at the impact report, a few of our staff actually engage in some of these things.
I wouldn't say a few, because there are those who physically do it and are actively involved, and there are those who know it happens but do nothing about it. So they might as well be involved.
I agree. In fact, that's why we are saying governance issues also is very important in our conservation efforts. Issues of good governance, and that is why as Eldoret Water and Sanitation Company, we actually joined Global Compact. We are the only water service provider in Kenya who has joined the United Nations Global Compact because of 4 reasons. One of the reasons, and this is something I am passionate about and serious about, and I'm trying to change the culture of our consumers, some of those consumers who are unscrupulous, or some of our staff who are not honest. Number one, environmental conservation is a principle of the United Nations Global Compact. Number two, sustainability. And that's why we are looking at even powering our pumping systems using solar. And then number three, good working conditions for workers. To incentivize them, to know that they are providing this public good to Kenyans. And they have to be people of high moral standing. That is what we are driving. And then number four, anti-corruption measures. These are some of the things now we are currently doing. We have done a lot of work around them.
Right.
And we are changing the culture of Kenyans in that town. And we want to be the pace setters in the Republic in terms of ensuring that we do the right things always at the right time and provide the public good. But
Peter.
of course, there are consequences. If you are found stealing water, or if you are found with these illegal connections, there are consequences. If you are a household, the penalty is 30,000 and the amount of water consumed for as long as you connected. But we are trying to be a win-win. We are doing 2 years behind. If you are less than 2 years, we will go specific.
We'll go specific to
If it's a commercial entity, we do 100,000 penalty, and then also we do for as long as you connected. And we're trying. And by the way, a lot of Kenyans we've been able to get who are doing this kind of illegal connections.
Peter, Lamek says you have articulated the issues very, very well. He hopes that what you've been saying can actually also be put into action so people don't have dry taps in Eldoret anymore. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for sensitizing us about climate action and the conference that's coming up on the 8th of April at Eka Hotel.
Thank you very much.
And everybody is welcome, right?
Thank you. Everybody, we have actually invited, we are going to have 250. We'll have an exhibition, but the rest of Kenyans who will not make it or who will not get invitation cards can watch us live on KTN News. They can also follow us online on Facebook, Twitter, and various social media platforms.
Asante sana, Peter.
Yeah, thank you
All
very
the
much.
best on that.
Yeah.